G'day legends and welcome to the Celtic Down Under Wednesday Pot Noodle. I'm your host Jared and joining me tonight are Liam, Johnny and Shane. How are you, Shane?
Good, thanks, Jared. Good. Had a really interesting recent couple of days. Did a what they call the safari slumber. So the open range zoo in Melbourne allows people to come in and sleep over in the zoo for the evening. And it was a birthday gift my partner got not too long ago. So we went and did it over the weekend, and honestly, it was just brilliant. Absolutely loved it. It was such an experience, and would recommend it to anybody if they get the opportunity. Werribee Open Range Zoo, check it out.
Now, did you hang out with the giraffes so you'd feel at home like around me, Johnny and Liam? You're like, this big.
I did, and typical short man syndrome kicked in, but that's okay.
I was going to make a joke about like hugging a rhino or spooning with a zebra or something like that, but I thought, nah, we'll go the giraffes. It's a bit more fun. Anyway, and how are you, Johnny?
I'm good. I'm doing very well. We had the long weekend up here as well. I assume it's everywhere, but it was the Labor Day stuff here. So
just you guys.
Just us. That's good. That's how it should be. And then we all went away. All the boys. We went away to the Queensland countryside, and it was in Warwick. It was very, very pretty. It was extremely cold, which was like 5 degrees. Jesus, I was freezing. We watched the game. That was good. Had some beers, and I think the biggest positive of that weekend, despite the win, was pissing off the dumpling that is Piers Morgan. That was that really brought me a lot of joy. So yeah, good weekend.
And how are you, Liam?
Good. I was just thinking what Shane was saying there about the safari slumber. I once fell asleep in a nightclub in Glasgow. Does that count?
That's a different type of safari.
Yeah, all good here. Been on holiday all week. Wee bit thirsty though, I have to say. So excuse me while I just have a wee.
We're bringing props in.
He's got props. The level of the podcast is through the roof now. There's props involved. There's animals. There's, Piers Morgan. Oh, we're off to a flying start. Happy days.
Piers Morgan, the bell end, as I call him.
Yeah. It doesn't get much better. Like over here, we had was it Andrew Bolt carrying on as well about it, and the guy's an absolute pill. Like, I know a family friend who's worked with him in the past, and he's just an absolute. It's the nicest way to sum him up here. Absolute dick of a human. It's probably the nicest way to sum him up this early in the pod without swearing properly. So I'm getting, the show demonetized and everything, and the channel taken down. So yeah, bit of an idiot, but yeah, you can keep your flag shagging to yourselves. You guys we'll get on with the podcast.
I think somebody made a really good point in that whole debacle. We all know what we're talking about with this particular week, but it was all the media being either deliberately ignorant or just choosing to not bring up the truth, sort of stuff. That's all it is.
Oh, no surprises there. Selective editing, isn't that what it is?
Exactly. Yeah.
But anyway, well, what I want to start off the show with is everyone tuning in the comments. Appreciate you all tuning in. Let us know, first of all, where you watched the game on the weekend, and tell us what your favourite reaction was to after the post-match, whether it was on Twitter and you saw some crazy, follow posts or whatever. Chuck all that in the comments. We want to have a laugh later. We might do that with a bit of zombie watch later on if we've got time. So chuck it in there. Give us something to laugh about. I just want to get some interactivity going on the podcast. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll quickly talk about the game. If you want to get the deep dive into the game, you've got the weekend review on Monday. They've touched on it there in a lot of details. Yesterday, the Tuesday crew, they spoke about it as well. We'll just give it the Cliff Notes version on this show, and then we'll get into a couple other topics, and then we'll more focus on the upcoming game where we potentially win the league. So, Liam, where did you watch the game, and just your overall thoughts on it?
Yeah, watched it in my house with a beer in hand, chatting to my dad back in Scotland over the internet, and it was fantastic. Really the whole thing about we never stop, that first goal was that was it to perfection. That was the entire ethos of Ange's approach to the game, crystallised in one moment, and it was absolutely beautiful.
And that's why the podcast name what it is, Liam. Do you want to decipher that for everyone or translate it? Because it's a Japanese one. So over to you.
Okay, so the Japanese that you've seen at the top there reads "私達は決して止まらない," which basically means we never stop.
So we thought it's a perfect summary because it ties in on 3 different fronts here. As we'll discuss later in the podcast, we're off to Korea and Japan. We won a cup semi-final on the weekend. A lot of teams would be like, yeah, we're in a cup final. Us, no time to worry about that and stew on it. We never stop. Our next game, we can win the league. So it's a perfect week for that topic and that subject for the name of the podcast. So, yeah. Thanks for the name there, Liam. It looks funny to me. I'm loving it. Shane, where did you watch the game?
I'll circle back to before. Actually, the sleepover at the Slumber Safari was on match day. So we'd just put the fire out and retired back to the cabins, and I was streaming it on my phone whilst watching it. And it was quite late here. It was about 10:30 kickoff, and it was a really quiet, still evening, and everyone else had kind of retired to bed. And they're not the most noise-proof kind of cabins, so there was a lot of muffled cheering and a lot of muffled swearing and a lot of muffled laughter at the goal too. But it was a bit of an interesting experience, just trying to not disturb not just other residents but also the animals. You could hear the lions roar in the distance. It was a remarkable experience. Anyway, look, pretty skittish start from both teams. I thought we settled pretty well. Went in at halftime, deserved leaders. It was a strange mixture of laughter and celebration for the goal. Celebration because we scored, and laughter because of just how easily they switched off. Second half, initially they put us under the cosh a little bit, and I don't think we were poor. We still created a couple of chances, but they pinned us in a little bit. Subs came on, and I think that's when we got control of the game again. And overall, we did what we needed to do. So roll on the cup final.
Johnny, how about yourself?
Shane, I don't know how you didn't make any jokes about the jungle or hearing the Lisbon lion roars or something like that. Like,
not caring what the
you had them
say,
all. Sleeping with the lions.
You did cartwheels with the lions, that sort of stuff.
Why would I? My job is to set it up. I set it up for you guys to knock it down, right? I throw it up there, volley's up. You've just got to come. I set it, and you just got to come over and smash it over the net.
That's it. Yeah, all right. Good to remember now. Yeah. No, I watched it. Like I said, I was in Warwick, so we stayed in this old converted wool shed. So it was very, very picturesque. So we just had my iPad on the sort of the veranda table, and we just sort of had some drinks and whiskeys and beers and stuff and watched it. So yeah, it was myself very attentive on the game. Everybody else sort of like in and out having their conversations, but that was fine by me. What I thought of the game was, do you know what? See, if you're a neutral, that was a proper good game. That was very end to end, very exciting. Obviously, like I said last week on the pod, it was heart in your mouth sort of stuff. I thought that the Rangers came out really far. They were pressing us really up the pitch, which basically meant that their fullbacks basically had to come up as well. So I think we won it because our wings, it was Jota and Maeda, and it was that space just behind them that basically won it for us. And I'm actually saying that as well. Them pressing McGregor opened up space there as well because all their midfield moved forward. So it just opened up the space just behind them, and that really we clearly saw that because I saw I think it was Taylor was trying to do a lot of balls over the top to Maeda and stuff. So we definitely saw the space, and eventually it paid off. But yeah, like Liam was saying, it was just that mentality of never stopping. It was everybody said this schoolboy stuff. You play to the whistle. Clearly, it was a foul because every single person every single Rangers player was expecting the whistle to come, and the ones that didn't expect it to come were us because we never get it, and we managed to get the goal out of it, and that's what we like to see. That sort of never stop mentality. That's Ange's motto, right? So yeah, it was a really good game, and yeah, it was a good win. It was good for the neutral.
Yeah, well, for me, I went to the My Couch CSC to watch the game and don't remember seeing much after the 12-minute mark. So I had to rewatch it in the morning when I got up, and yeah, good fun. And then rewatch the game today to make sure I actually remembered things properly. So it was good fun. But I'll bring up some comments on where you guys watched the game. So there we go. Seamus, great day at Ham Dump beating the zombies, just recovering. Andrew Galea is what's the top, Liam?
Right, this is Matsumoto Yamaga, my local team, which Daiza Maeda used to play for, and this is the 2019 season jersey where they wore the green and white hoops, and Daizen actually wore the shirt while he played for them. So there you go.
Oh, there you go. Nice. What's the connection? Just hoops for the sake of it, or is it?
No, it's my local team. It's
no. Team. I mean, why does Maximo wear hoops?
Well, they've always wore some mix of green and white as their different kits, and it was never officially stated, but there were rumours that it was because of Nakamura having played for Celtic before. They liked the green and white hooped style and thought, we've not done that before yet, so let's do that. So
there you go.
Yeah.
There we go. So Andrew Galea watched the game at home. All the Sevco post-match interviews were gold. Giggsy the poet. Like Shane, I watched it with the animals as well. I was at Hampden.
See, that's the type of joke I was waiting for.
Watched it with the Gold Coast CSC at the Chevron Tavern. And
those Lord Hummel chevrons.
And then his highlight was Cantwell protecting the water. Water boy. And then here we go, David Spartacus. One of the things highlighted through Sevco forums is who's leaving. However, several of them are still under contract with 2, 3, 4 years remaining. They've got no money to pay them off. That's some of the funny stuff we've seen. Apparently, they're trying to play Ange ball now.
That's true.
It's more like dodgeball.
Mater's work rate means he's always going to have a moment like that.
Exactly.
David Spartacus, here we go, everyone. Sevco's squad more bloated than Morelos' bum cheeks.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, so we've got Andrew Galea responding to you, Liam, about the top. He goes, out of Melbourne Knights Celtic away strip when Viduka played for the Hoops.
All right, nice one.
Haven't seen one of them in a long, long time. So, yeah, good fun. But, yeah, for me, the game, it was pretty straightforward. It was one of them ones where, you know, first 15 minutes was scrappy. Rest of the first half, we were the dominant team. Second half, you know, 6 of one, half dozen the other on who was the better team there. Like, they had their moments, we had our moments. But what I liked about the second half is it just showed we're not it's the team that goes out there to try and blow players away and teams away. Showed that we can win the game in a scrappy way, which is we did that last time we played them as well in the cup final. So it's good to see there's different, you know, strings to our bow as a club, and we never stopped in a different way. Like instead of we never stopped scoring, well, we never stopped clearing their 4,000 crosses. We're just heading it away. And we never stopped laughing at, you know, Sakala hitting the side netting. So good fun.
Yeah, become a bit of his signature, isn't it, doing that?
The best part of that, though, was as he hit it, you look in the background and there's a centre backs and that with their hands on their head, like they just knew it was going to happen because they see it in training all the time.
I mean, I don't watch much of him, obviously, but I think he's absolutely rotten. I've never really seen him play against us and have a good game. Not really. I can't remember the last one, if there is ever one. But yeah, I don't get the attraction to him. I think he's absolutely shocking.
I think they signed him, because of the whole mind the gap sort of thing, because it's between his teeth instead of on the. That's what they're going for. It's the only thing I can think of with him. Like, I'm not the best looker, but come on, mate. At least this is somewhat better than that. Anyway, we'll move along. We'll so we've got about 4 other topics to get to, and one of the main ones we'll leave till last there, Liam, because I really want to give that a bit of a deep dive from your point of view, being in Japan, about the tour.
Mhm.
So what we'll do is there's a couple of things here. So Shane, this one I'm going to need you to really get stuck into. So there's stories coming out from the Professional Footballers Association about UEFA wanting to implement a salary cap across leagues in Europe. The current talk is for a cap on transfers and wages at 70% of a club's revenue. So from my point of view, I can get the article up and read more of it if we want, or share it on the screen, but I don't really want to because of the ads and stuff on the side of it. But basically, the PFA is saying that they want to do it. The UEFA president, Alexander Sefran, is saying that big and small clubs agree that limiting the earning potential of players is the best way forward. That grabbed to me straight away is what sets alarm bells off, because it's technically a restraint of trade. And how did the Bosman transfers come in the first place? Because of a restraint of trade. So if you've got someone like Messi who could be earning 700,000-800,000 to a year or whatever, and a week, not a year, and you can only pay him a maximum, and he's at a club where he can only earn like a maximum of like 70,000 a week. I get it. That's still a shitload of money, but it's still like, for me, I just don't really I think it's going to be a royal shit fight in the courts if it does happen. But they're just going through talking about it here. They're looking at it like in England and Wales. PFA's got more than 5,000 members. They think they're going to create a real problem if they treat players like this. Now, what they're saying in 2021, it succeeded in the challenge of an independent panel to have squad salary caps of $2.5 million and 1.5 million in Leagues 1 and Leagues 2 withdrawn. So they've already tried this in the lower leagues in England, and the PFA's already put that on the kibosh in courts. So what I was going to say here is, so what Sefran was saying is that for now we have the new rules after 2024 that you can spend up to 70% of your revenues for salaries and transfers, but that's not enough limiting enough, because if your revenues are 5 billion, 70% of that is quite a lot. It's not about the owners, it's about the value of the competition, because if 5 clubs will always win it, then it doesn't make sense anymore. So UEFA are looking at it in terms of they only want to do this to try and improve the overall standard, not have the same 5 teams winning in every league. But then you've got the Players Association, the PFA, saying it's going to be a restraint of trade. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But why we brought this up is we was touched on a couple of weeks ago on the pod about salary caps down here in the A-League. So, Shane, I'll get you to go through what the setup is down here in the A-League with that, and then we'll just discuss it further from there. So over to you, Shane.
Yeah, so as part of the league down here, so the A-League, so our top tier, we have a salary capped league. I don't have the figure off the top of my head that we have for each season, but there was a CBA a few seasons ago that they increased that limit. And so basically, apart from a few exemptions, the clubs here, I think, have to spend 90% or get up to 90% of the available salary cap. There is a floor as well as a cap, but it's a cap league. So teams here can't just go out and sign players for the sake of it and put them on whatever wages they want. They have a cap that they have to kind of juggle with. Now, there are a few exemptions to that list as well. So the way that we work here is we have what we call marquee players, which are basically both international and also Australian marquee players that can have a wage outside of the cap if you choose. right? So to give you an example of that, my club at Melbourne Victory and Jared's club as well, Melbourne Victory, we have Chris Economides on a marquee contract. So he doesn't, because he's a marquee, he doesn't get paid within that cap. He can get paid whatever amount they want. They're kind of special positions made available for kind of anyone can be made a marquee, basically. We also have, in terms of exemptions, guest player slots as well. So if you sign a guest player, they can play half the season. Again, they were exempt from the salary cap. You can pay them whatever you want. As part of the recent CBA that was introduced a few years ago, the league also introduced what's called a designated player option, which allows you to pay certain players between, I think, 300 and 600K as their wage, but it's counted outside of the salary cap. And then the final one was a dedicated players exemption, which is basically if a player has played more than 10 seasons at one club, you can basically, their wage doesn't have to count within the cap, which Jared and I have that. Lee Broxham, who's been at Melbourne Victory pretty much since its inception as a club, it'll be coming up to almost 20 years soon.
Should have retired 3 years ago, but anyway.
Hey, I love Broxy. I'm not going to hear a bad word about Broxy. He's on all my tops. No. Anyway, so apart from those exemptions, and we've got restrictions in terms of how many visa players we can have as well, but they all come under the cap.
Do you want me to give the figures on all of it, Shane? Because I've been able to look it up.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the figure off the top. Is it 2.5 or something?
It's 2.6 million for a team. So you got a squad of 25 players. 5 can be non-Australian or New Zealanders.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to have 20 players, and you've got to fit a bunch. Like the salary cap is 2.6 million. Now, then you can pay 2 of them as your marquee players outside the cap, and you can pay them whatever amount you want. Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't count on the cap. So that brings it down to 23 players with 2.6 million to play with. But then you can have 2 designated players between 300 and 600,000. So that brings it down to 21 players with 2.6 million as your salary cap. The salary cap is to be reviewed middle of next year because 5-year CBA comes up at the end of next season. So they do that. So it encourages you to develop players and bring them through. But what we also see a lot of down here is a lot of, like, you sign a player from another club and the first 3 or 4 comments will all be the recycling symbol. Because players just bounce around the clubs a lot down here.
There's another reason or difficulty too, and another bit to add some context to the situation here is that we don't have, or our league doesn't allow transfers between clubs. So let's just say that there's an Adelaide United player and Melbourne Victory is interested for him. We can't go and offer Adelaide a fee and get that approved, and he has to basically have his contract either run down or what we call getting mutual, which is mutually terminate the contract so he can then go across to another club. And it leads to a frustrating situation as well. Now, this isn't necessarily the cap discussion, but it gives you a bit of context around sort of cap usage and holding on to players who are saying, well, I don't really want to be here. I want to be at that club. You've got to null and void my contract. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit on the bench and do nothing. So it's a little bit complex here. I think the other thing at the heart of it is a noble intention, right? Is the idea that these big clubs just can't go and pillage other little clubs and pay whatever they want for players to come in. And we're still a fledgling league, really. We're not even 20 years old. We're still trying to build the foundations of what will hopefully be a long league for a long time. So there's a very big difference to us having a salary cap as part of our league and what is being proposed in Europe. And I'm sure the other boys will comment on that in a second. I think it's a little bit, and I've thought about this throughout the day, and I probably lean on the side of, I think it's almost like trying to put the genie back in the bottle. I don't know if they can do this. I don't know how fair it is for players to all of a sudden be subjected to, not being able to be, like, if someone wants to pay you a certain amount as an employee, you're probably like, yeah, pay me whatever you want. I'll go and play, sure. Again, noble at the heart of it. I'm just not sure it can be achieved.
So off the back of that, Shane, what they've got is Other rules are clubs must spend at least 90% of the, so 2.25 million of the salary cap on their squad. So that's one thing there. And there's also another rule where the A-League 16 to 19-year-old players, as your development players, that don't count in your match day squad, they get a minimum wage of 45,000 a year. So you go work in the coal mines and, you know, get that in a quarter, basically, over here. So it's not good money. So going through the comments before we look at it anyway, there's RL77 is surely that can easily be solved by using EBTs. Talking about a workaround of it. And then you've got Kev Graham here is like, game is gone. It's time to let the rich run away and all the rest of us find our natural competitive level. Cross-border leagues, European leagues, we're too far gone to get it back now.
Yeah.
Andrew Galea, hopefully the salary cap in Australia is scrapped. Vinny, your mate Shane giving you some shit. Love it. Expiring A-League expert and correspondent Shane. Vinny does have a good point here. A-League needs relegation and promotion. So that's the next step in it. They've got to bring in that national second tier, let it settle for 3 or 4 years, in my opinion. Make sure everyone's finances are good before unleashing relegation and promotion. Kaiser is, we had a cap here. Rangers just paid players in offshore accounts. So that's a slight thing around it as well. Vinny, offshore accounts, how's Morelos paid in donuts? Kaiser's responded, he's paid in Greg's sausage rolls.
Geez, those two are riffing in the comments. Vinny woke up and chose violence this morning. Like,
it's a few days. They're becoming besties. And then you've got Kaiser saying overall it sounds overcomplicated, which it is. It's way too complicated. Looking at it, it used to be so much easier. When it first came in, you had your salary cap, 2 marquees, that was it. And 5 foreigners were allowed. That was it. It was so much easier. So, you know, people try to do things the right way and stuff things around. Andrew Galea, Australia's promotion, relegation, no salary cap. Let the cream rise and the market dictate wages. Better for youth development. We're pretty much seeing that anyway. Like, you've got to pay 90% of your cap. And you've got a club like Central Coast Mariners, for instance, which is one of the best youth development clubs. Like, if I had a kid who was good enough to be breaking in the A-League, even though I'm a Victory fan, I'd probably want them to go to Central Coast and come through that academy, because at least, you know, if they're good enough, they're going to get game time.
yeah, and that's one of the things that Central Coast have done well. I mean, even though there's a salary cap, if you're offering a contract to a player and say, look, here's Melbourne Victory, here's Sydney FC, here's Central Coast, which is Gosford, you know, more than likely, you know, the player or the known player is probably going to pick Melbourne Victory or Sydney FC, initially at least. So what they've done, they've got a great manager who really values youth. They've got a great youth setup, as you said, Jared. So they've gone, right, maybe we can't do this that way, but what we can do is we can develop our own kids. And because of the lack of transfer system and also the cap, it means that teams like Victory and Sydney can't necessarily come into Central Coast and say, we're going to grab that kid, we're going to pay you this money, and we're going to take... They've basically got to, they stay at Central Coast and develop a bit longer, and they get the benefit for it. So, look, there's merits to it. There is, but it's a whole different kettle of fish when you get over to Europe.
So, Johnny, throw it to you for the lawyer side of it. Someone with some legal.
Jesus. I mean, look, overcomplicated is putting it almost simply. I'm going to be honest with you. After listening to all that, Shane, it sounds awful. I'm not a fan of that at all. It just sounds like they are they're trying to dip their toes to 2 separate pools. They're trying to like have all of these regulations to mean that all the teams have some sort of level of fairness, but then they're also creating all of these sort of exemptions to those rules, which means that, you know, it doesn't really matter anyway, because you just listed them all, and to be honest with you, I can't remember half of the bloody terms that he came up with. They all sounded like the exact same with tiny distinctions. But like if you were still Melbourne City, for example, you still have one of the biggest salaries, biggest budgets, I imagine. You're still going to go get like whatever it is, the 5 marquees or the designated or whatever you called it, and you're still going to get these ridiculous players, and they're still going to be the better team, right? That's just it just sounds like a really, really poor system. And I think Jared made a really, really good point in his intro, which was I don't understand how it's going to make the European leagues fairer or more equal, or however you want to describe it, when you've got teams like Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, who are in the billions of revenue, and then you've got Celtic, who are in the tens of millions or hundreds of millions, right? It's 70% of a smaller budget is still going to be the same. We still have the same issue for us, which is we cannot offer a player that more money in terms of remuneration than they can get if they moved on to the Bundesliga. Look at Frimpong, that's what he did, right? He was up and coming player. We were offering him, probably offered him a really good contract, but he was just going to get more. Leverkusen, I think it was. It went. So he's just going to get more if he goes into a bigger league. So the situation is going to be the same if we have a salary cap at 70%. So I don't really understand.
Right there, John, I'll just jump in quickly. You're talking about like going to the Bundesliga. Andrew Galea has brought Adelaide produce good players consistently. Celtic should grab their young boy. If you're talking about, we've spoken about Estri before, Aaron Kunda. We've been talking him up all season, and it looks like Bayern Munich's in for him. So, if that's the case, we've seen it with our own youth at Celtic. We can't keep them if people are going to go across to the Bundesliga. So that'll rule him out. Then you still got Gauchi, the goalkeeper there we could go in for. But
it's just how free markets work. It's not something that we should be frustrated or upset about. It's where we are. I think the only way to make leagues fairer, right? And I think we've kind of discussed this before, is to somehow disperse. I wouldn't say winnings, but when teams get into the European competitions, that there is some sort of prize money that is then dispersed to the other teams in the league, right? And that doesn't have to be. If we don't think about it just in the Scottish league terms, right? If we look at like the Croatian leagues, if we look at the Dutch league, and do you know what I mean? Like, and all of the other ones that are slightly smaller, the Greek leagues, when you've got one of the bigger teams that get through to the Champions League or Europa League, right? Would it not make more sense that all of the other teams get a fee for having their big team get into that big league, right? That big competition, and then all of a sudden you're slowly bringing, as your better teams get better, they're slowly bringing up everybody else with them, rather than the top leagues just running away with the smaller ones, the top teams running away with the smaller ones. So I don't know. That seems better than I think this sounds awful. I'm so against the capping salary. I think it just ruins it. I think you turn it into American leagues when it's, even though they don't cap leagues, but I think just the artificialness of it and the rotation of whoever wins it every year and all this stuff. Maybe I'm a bit of an old dad with this and stuff. I just want you to just leave it alone. It's good as it is. It's like, it's not perfect, but it's fine. So just leave it alone, please. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Hey, Liam,
that reaction here.
Johnny was just in your wheelhouse, talking about some sort of basic communism there, like, get out of the Champions League and then,
healthy socialism,
and give everyone else a bit of that cash everywhere else and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, hang on, that's Johnny talking, not Liam. What is this? It's rubbing off here.
Just careful there, Jared, because remember, jokes about communism aren't funny unless everybody gets them, right? Right. To look at this, right, what I would say is that if UEFA press ahead with this, and I don't think they will, because UEFA historically they shit themselves the minute any big club objects to anything they're going to do, right? So I don't think this is going to get beyond the planning stages. But if they actually do want to press ahead with this, they're going to have to see it through all the way to the long haul, which could be 10 to 15 years. Because what will happen is your Man City, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, these teams that are essentially too big for the current setup, would just say, right, to hell with us, European League time, off we go. And UEFA would then need to have the bottle to say, okay, cheerio, off you go. And let them go and have their 10 or 15 team elite league, right? And the rest of us can get on with it. Because if you take that top 15 or whatever out of the equation, you've suddenly got probably about 30 or 40 teams, of which I would say Celtic are one of them, which suddenly are on a fairly level playing field. Could we compete consistently with Real Madrid and Bayern Munich? No. Right? Could we consistently compete with teams like Olympiacos, Ajax, PSV Eindhoven? Yes, we could. Right? And that's the sort of level that the de facto Champions League would become once all the big teams pissed off and made their own league. But what would inevitably happen is that in the fullness of time, like all TV products, it has a shelf life. And remember, if you're talking about a European Super League, that's all it is. It is a TV product. It's not a sporting competition at that point because it's not based on sporting merit. It's based purely on who's got the biggest financial balls, right? And basically, fans are going to get tired of, for want of a better phrase, this dick showing contest between billionaires. And they're going to want some real football again. And at that point, your Real Madrids and your Manchester Cities are going to have to come back with a tail between their legs and say, UEFA are going to let us back in. And that is when UEFA could bring the teams back in on their terms and put in whatever caps they want. But that excludes the fact, which, as John has already said, this thing is legally mince. It is not going to last even the slightest bit of legal scrutiny, right? You cannot, in a free market economy, you cannot cap people's wages. As much as I would like to, right? You can't, right? You simply can't. Also, I'm quite concerned that the main difference between this and what Shane described with the Australian League, you talked about there being a minimum wage in there as well for the younger players. Now, as Jared said, it's not an adequate working man's wage, right? There are ways that people of that age could make a lot more money doing, other jobs. But it's a start. UEFA don't even mention that, and that would worry me. That for this to work, you would have to sell it to the majority of clubs in Europe, and I think having a minimum wage as well as a maximum wage would be a lot more palatable, because for every Messi who's suddenly going to be pissed off that he can't make any more than £500,000 a week, you're then going to have players at English second and third division teams who are like, oh wait a minute, I'm suddenly guaranteed 50 grand a year. I'll take that. That's the other end of the spectrum. But ultimately, caps are not the way to solve this. Rebalancing the competitions to give teams a fairer shot. Doing away with seedings would be a good start, right? I mean, every year the Champions League is basically stacked in such a way that you've got 2 good teams and 2 diddy teams in every group. That's basically, in principle, the way it is. And unfortunately, at the moment in a Champions League sense, Celtic are considered one of the diddy teams, right? And until we start winning some games in Europe, that's what we are. And that's not going to change. And I think that creates this imbalance which runs right through the whole competition. If you had a situation where it was a completely open draw, and imagine if you had, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Juventus, and Man United are all in the same group. You say, right, 2 of those teams are going out before we get to the last 16. Suddenly the competition becomes a whole lot more interesting. And any perceived loss of TV revenue would be made up in the fact that every game in that group is box office.
Good point.
So the thing I look at, Liam, off the back of what you're saying, is you're going to have all these teams that are used to being the big fish in the small pond sort of thing. Like your Bayerns, your Juventuses, your Atletico, Real Madrid, Barcelona, those sort of guys being the big guys, always winning. And then they suddenly get into this league where they're not even in the top 6.
Yeah.
How are their fans going to react? And that's where it's going to turn on them. The owners may want this for extra money and a pathway to make more cash themselves, but when it flips the script and they're not winning and their fans are so used to it, they're going to be demanding players get sacked, coaches get sacked, the board gets sacked. It's going to become a nightmare. And then that's where you said come back with their tail between their legs later on. It's the only way it'd work. But at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
I've been very worried. Not very worried. I've been worried of recent that the owners of these sort of giant elite clubs, like the mega bucks ones, are slowly marching towards totally sterilizing football. That it just becomes something akin to like WWE. Everything's sort of like predestined, predetermined, almost false, and it's just only the big teams, only the teams with the biggest revenue get through to finals, and X, Y, Z and stuff. And it's yeah, I'm all for changing it, but I just think that these types of changes are just going to make it worse, and I'm not for it.
In fairness, I'd pay good money to watch Neymar getting choke slammed, but that's another story.
Make it happen, WWE. There you go. All right. So what we'll do is we'll use this as a transition over, because I'm looking at some of the comments, right, which is going to tie it up nicely. So we're talking about the caps and then the youth having a minimum wage and all this sort of stuff, right? And then we've got some comments here. Kaiser was saying Celtic should scrap the youth set up by a feeder club, establish the Celtic group, send our youth from the academy level to those clubs like Shamrock Rovers, that they have a pathway into Europe. Saw your post on Twitter yesterday, Kaiser. That was pretty impressive from what you put up there. So something to put on the list here was that there's the new conference leagues being voted on about being set up above the Lowland League and Highland League, which could potentially have up to 6 teams promoted from the Highland and Lowland Leagues and 4 Premiership B teams in it, would start in the 2024-2025 season. We've all discussed on the pod numerous times what our thoughts on the pathway are for our youth players to come through. So for me, looking at it and what we're talking about as well with like salary caps and everything, if a salary cap comes in and then you've still got that set up, like with that conference league coming in Scotland, okay, that could potentially be a way for more young kids to, earn a minimum wage and stuff like that. But, but then I still don't think that's a high enough level for our kids to be getting first team football. So that's where Kaiser's thing, where he was saying about, having a pathway through with feeder clubs and stuff like that, and having the Celtic group would actually become a potentially feasible sort of thing. But there's a lot of water to go under the bridge before anything like that happens. But off the whole conference league thing being voted on, Liam, we'll quickly whip around 2 or 3 sentences each, because we went a little longer on the last one than I expected us to, because we went off on a few tangents. But do you think the conference coming in with 4 Premiership B teams, so us, Sevco, Hearts, Aberdeen's the other one they're talking about going into it, so those 4 teams plus 6 teams, 3 from the Highland League, 3 from the Lowland League coming up, and putting that above those, can you see that being a good thing for Scottish football overall? Or do you think there's no way that's going to get voted through, because those teams, those junior teams in the Lowland League, are going to be wanting to push up into the pyramid?
I think it's a good idea in principle, but unfortunately, like most things in Scottish football, self-interest will probably make sure it doesn't happen. Like you say, these wee teams are not going to, turkeys don't vote for Christmas. They're not going to do something that's going to make the current system more difficult for them, even though it would give them more interesting competition. Particularly the Highland League, there's a few pretty... In that scope, there's quite a few big clubs up there who do deserve to be playing at a higher level. So, yeah, I hope it goes through. I don't think it will, because, as usual, cronyism will take over.
John, what's your thoughts?
Well, I seem to be in the minority on this. I'm not a fan of the Reserve League, and I'm always talking up the other Scottish leagues and stuff. Haven't watched them a lot. I think the standard is pretty good, and it's probably pretty decent for our youth. So yeah, I hope it goes through. I agree with Liam though. The Highland League and Lowland League has some very, very good teams in it. So it'll be a good competition. So yeah, I'm a big fan, and obviously just getting a proper competition in the sense that like there's promotion and demotion and stuff. Like I want that as well.
Now, Shane, I'm going to give you a slightly different take on this because, you know, you're like me, an Aussie, born and bred over here. You don't know the Lowland League as much as the other two boys on the pod will. So Andrew Galea said Celtic could afford an Aussie club, and this is where it ties into the last thing, because Kaiser's post was that he suggested that we buy clubs in Ireland, Australia, and North America. Now, the problem with Australia is, as we said, you can only have 5 foreigners. So unless Celtic are going to be developing Australian and New Zealand youth kids to bring them through to then look to bring them up the pipeline from Australia into Scotland to play for the club and break through that way, you'll only be able to bring 5 guys over to play here. So can you give me your thoughts, Shane, on that concept that Kaiser's saying there about buying, and Andrew's saying about Celtic could afford an Aussie club? Do you think that could work?
It depends on what they want to get out of it. Like if it's all about developing, you know, Scottish or European-born players that they then want to get to a higher level, then no, not with the restrictions the A-League have in place. If they're actually looking to develop Australian talent or local talent here and then use them to come across, then yes, it would work. So I guess it depends, but I would say they're obviously going to look at more of the former than the latter, to be honest. And on that basis, no, it wouldn't work with the restrictions that we have in place, unfortunately.
That's my thoughts as well, Shane. So spot on. All right. So I'm just changing the order on the run sheet for a second because this flows in a little better. But I'm going to share an article for all you guys who are watching live on our YouTube channel. Oh, geez, that didn't work. Let me go try this again. But there's an article on an Australian website that covers sports over here called Raw. And this bloke called Stuart Thomas, who is an apparent expert, the headline, Scotland is conquered. Time for Postecoglou to move on. But does a Premier League team have the guts? So I'm only sharing this article in the comments because once the episode's over, check that out. Go have a read. This bloke's an absolute dingbat. There you go. That's a good Aussie one for you. Absolute idiot. And the only reason I'd share it on the screen, but I don't want all these ads for Mary Poppins, you know, at the, you know, theatre. But yeah, basically he goes, Celtic semi-final win over Rangers on Sunday, set up a Scottish Cup final against Championship side Inverness Caledonian Thistle. And then it craps on for a bit about Ange, and we all knew that Ange was a handy manager at South Melbourne, let alone Brisbane and Victory and all this sort of stuff. But then the point of the article is he just gets to the point saying, would any team like Liverpool or West Ham or Tottenham or Chelsea have the guts to bring Ange down and back him in the way we have and build a program? So that's the point of the article. I'm just bringing this up because I thought it was some pie-in-the-sky sort of journalism. So just wanted to share that so you guys can all have a bit of a chuckle at that, because it's not just absolute idiots over with some blue-tinted specs on over in Scotland. There's idiots over here as well. So it was pretty funny. So off the back of that, is it time for Ange to move on? For me, hell no. Got a couple of years usually he's 3 to 4 years at a club. So he's year 2. We've seen the improvement in the squad in terms of the playing style and everything, and how much depth we built up to this now. So next year, if he does the treble this year, the next step is to make a big option, like do well in Europe next year in the Champions League. And I think that's the motivating factor for him. So I think Ange is at least 1, potentially 2 more seasons before he'd look to do anything. But Liam, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you. I think that Europe is the sort of the unfinished part of Ange's Celtic project, which I think we could have a real go at next year. And also there's the fact that, you know, his family seem to like where they are here. Ange is the type of guy who puts family very much at the forefront of things, ahead of, dare I say, financial or personal sort of accolades. I think family is more important to him, and if his family are happy in Scotland, he's a happy man in Scotland. But also, I just think that Celtic, what we're about, what our fans are about, what we represent, what Ange brings and what he aspires to. I can't remember a time when I've ever seen a football team and a football manager who have been so perfectly compatible. This is his ideal club, and he is our ideal manager, honestly. It fits so well. And no, I think that he's not going to be lured away purely by money, which ultimately, with the greatest respect in the world, that is all that, a Southampton or a Leeds or a Spurs could offer him, because they're never going to win the league. They might win a cup once every 30 or 40 years if they're lucky. They might do something in the lesser European competitions, but they'll never win the Champions League. And I don't think Ange is a type of guy who would be happy at a club where finishing 8th is considered a superb season.
No chance.
No.
Yeah, so for me, something you said there, Liam, just popped up to me as well. Like, yeah, he's such a good fit at the club. And the other thing we've got to remember is he was trying to get to Europe for years and years and years. He started managing back in 96. We were the first club in Europe that actually had the balls to bring him over and give him a chance. So I think Ange being the sort of person that he is, that would mean a lot to him as well. So it would take a hell of a lot. I think the only sort of club that he would drop things for now would be if Jurgen Klopp retired at the end of the season because he grew up a Liverpool fan. That's the only sort of thing I can see if he was to go to England that would possibly do it, or if Pep moved on because of the ties with the City Group. They're the only sort of things I could see him walking out now without completing his full rebuild and pushing on into the next couple of things. So we'll bring up some comments before we go to you, Shane and Johnny. But Kaiser is time for Ange to sign a 10-year deal, $10 million a year, $100 million buyout, and we build the Ange dynasty as Ange moves into director of football in 10 years' time. Ange ball forever.
Oh, yes. Yes, that would be perfect.
Kevin Mullinoff here, we could end up as part of the City Group. Okay, we got Ange through the City Group, but we need to keep our roots. Absolutely. Talking about weird, articles and that. What about the James Rodriguez being a real shot at going to Celtic? Andrew Galea was next season is all about Europe. Eamon is he loves the fans. Look at his celebration.
Yeah.
Michael Ross, Andrew's here for 10 and the European trophy. Plus, like Larson before him, he's happy at Celtic. Andrew Galea, Sevco won't finish next season. They're done. Second next season. Kaiser, I think we could win the Champions League.
I mean, I could shag Kylie Minogue. It's possible, but highly, highly unlikely. But you never know. My wife's going out to get some shopping, which is why I'm able to say that without
Kaiser, if the City Group were an uncle, I'd be calling the police for grooming.
Oh, dear.
But anyway, well, John, you got anything you want to add to this crapshoot of a conversation right now?
Look, I mean, my only concern, I guess, I think we talk a big game, but I've learnt my lesson after Rodgers. I think I fear that we said something very similar when Rodgers was around, and we're starting to say about Ange. So I just don't expect much anymore. All right, fair enough, Europe and stuff. I do see though that if you win almost every domestic treble every domestic competition, then you're kind of thinking at that point, okay, well, what's my next competition? I agree. We all agree, right? It's Europe, and that's the big next step, is to make a big impact in Europe. But where he sees that and where he decides to move on, I don't know. I don't see he's ever going to go to Liverpool or Man City after Glasgow, after Celtic stuff. I just don't see it ever happening. Like it's going to be, it will be an Everton, it will be a Southampton, it will be, and then it'll test himself out in the Premier League. It 100% will. Or if it's not the English league, it'll be off to Spain or something. It'll be off to the German
Spain
league.
or Germany.
Yeah, but as much as we absolutely hate it, myself included, more than any probably, but the English football's the most watched and probably the biggest league. So that will be his ultimate goal. He'll feel like he's made it when he gets there and stuff, if he ever gets there. Do I think he's happy at Celtic? Of course I do. Do I see him going soon? I wouldn't bet on it, but I would not be shocked if maybe next season is his last. I don't know. I think we just enjoy it whilst he's here, and I think he's putting us on a trajectory that we really didn't have for a bit. We were really worried that we were taking some massive steps backwards with the Lennon years and stuff, and now we're really going we're probably overshooting Rodgers. That's a big call to make. Well, I think we probably are. Who knows where we're going to end on points this season? So I think we just enjoy it whilst he's here. We're grateful that we've got him, and we just hope he stays as long as he can. And then he'll probably decide when he's ready to go, when he's done what he wanted to achieve at Celtic, and then he'll go on to another league. So yeah, I'm just apprehensive and worried that we're going to have the exact same heartbreak that we all had a couple of years ago.
Do I have to sing to him? Don't go breaking your heart.
Yeah,
I will. I'll get on to karaoke and do it. It won't be pleasant, but I will get on the channel and do it. Yeah, for me, like John, I get what you're saying, but yeah, I think he'll be the sort where we'll get him to at least the end of next season. And then Europe, it's like, he did say when he came in that one of his things was he wanted to build Celtic up to be a European power again, a club that's consistently in the Champions League. So we win this league on the weekend, we get into the Champions League, and off we go again. So, Shane, I'll give you the final comment on this, and then we'll crack on to the next topic.
I think Liam pretty much hit the nail on the head for me. The fit between Ange and the Celtic Football Club. I can hardly remember a time where manager and club have aligned so perfectly together at one time. Seeing him celebrate on the weekend, seeing him celebrate the way he holds the club in such high regard. I haven't seen him as long as yourself, Jared, in terms of the South Melbourne days, but in terms of A-League and his managerial history, like for me, the love that he kind of shows openly for Celtic is really only on par that I saw with the national team. There is a deeper, and South Melbourne. I knew you were going to say it. It just preceded me, but I knew that was his boyhood club. Big connection with his dad there. I know that means a lot to him, so I could imagine that connection was there as well. But that affinity between him and the fans and the club is there. And I haven't read the article you linked. I didn't read through it. But the premise of the article seems to be around he's won a couple, or will win his second league title in Scotland, potentially a treble. It's kind of done. There's a whole other frontier that is at Celtic for Ange to go and try and conquer. And I think the article, if it's making that assumption, is probably being a bit too insular in where it's looking. There's a whole lot more that Ange can do at Celtic and wants to do at Celtic. And I actually think he's going to be here a bit longer than people think. I reckon at least another 3 seasons, if not more. I reckon he's laid down his marker. Sorry, Johnny, I'm not trying to give you a false sense of hope, but I reckon he's laid down his marker. I think he's happy. Europe's the next challenge. It's going to require a lot of work and continually stepping up, and that's what he wants to do. And no, he's here for a while. He loves the club, and you can tell it.
Yeah, we'll leave that there, Shane, and hope that you're right. So, Liam, over to you. Celtic announced a tour of Japan and South Korea. South Korea will be playing against Wolves. The game's in Japan. I've heard all sorts of things that we're playing against a couple of local teams like Yokohama F Marinos and probably FC Tokyo or Vissel Kobe. But then I've also heard we're going to be playing against other European teams. So what's been reported over in Japan?
Well, after Celtic's initial announcement yesterday and before they confirmed the Wolves fixture in Korea, they did elaborate on the initial article. They went back and edited it and posted a new version of it, where they said, like, we have great admiration for the way the J League has grown, and we're looking forward to playing against some of those teams, which to me would seem to point to they're going to play against J League clubs. Now, if you're talking J League, there are, well, I think Yokohama Marinos is nailed on. That's going to be one of the games, right? If they're in Japan for a week, I think you're looking at a maximum of 2 games, assuming they're going to play a game in Korea as well. So who is the other team? Now, there are 3 possibilities, but only 2 of them I think are realistic possibilities, right? So Yokohama's one game, so let's put that aside, just assume they're going to play Yokohama, in Yokohama. FC Tokyo have a big stadium, and the team could base themselves in Tokyo and easily play a game in Yokohama and a game in Tokyo, because it's like going from Glasgow to Edinburgh. That's how close together they are, right? But the other ones are Vissel Kobe, because that's who we sing Kyogo from. They have quite a big following globally because they do have Iniesta as part of their makeup, and in the past they've had players like Podolski as well. But that's a good couple of hours south of Tokyo, so that's going to be that's a bit more out of the way if you're only in Japan for a week. Now, the other sort of dark horse one, which I don't think would happen, is a game against Urawa Reds. Now, I saw Urawa Reds play Man United back in 2007, and they've got a 60,000-seater stadium, right? They've got, I think, one of the biggest club stadiums in the country. So it's a great venue for Celtic. I mean, Chelsea played Barcelona in a friendly there a couple of years ago as well. So it is a good venue. But as I've said before, I won't go through it again. Urawa are not a club that are not very welcoming to foreigners, let's put it that way. So I don't see them engaging actively with Celtic, or Celtic being too keen to engage with them if they've done their research.
Hey, Liam, if we knock them back, you'll just have to drink from that bottle of yours again. Because they're the Japanese version of them.
Yes. You just feel like it's hunt ears, it's not hunt ears. I'm not a psychopath. Okay.
Eamon's put a comment up here about the thing. Do we know if there's any organised tours from Australia to Japan? There's a Facebook group, Celtic Japan Tour, that's been around for a while. There might be some info in there, but at the moment, I don't think anything has been arranged that I've seen. But some of the different CSCs are arranging for little groups to go here and there. So that's all I've heard from this side.
I'll just reiterate what I said on Axom yesterday. Anybody who's watching that is planning to possibly go to Japan, feel free to drop me a message in the Facebook group, and I will get back to you with any advice, any help I can give you. I've lived in Japan for 15 years, so I know the place pretty well. So,
and if you do that, Liam will buy you a pint.
As long as it's not in Roppongi, where it's bloody 25 Australian dollars a pint. The only place in the world where the hookers are cheaper than the beer. Allegedly.
I was going to say, anyone from Australia, teach Liam to do a shoey.
Yeah.
But then he goes,
idea what that is.
No, I've no idea what that is. I'm looking forward to being educated on that one.
It's the same. You get your shoe, you take it off your foot, you tip your beer in, you drink your beer out of your shoe.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Or
There you
get
go.
a thong
In
as well,
Glasgow,
you throw
I
it
think
down
they
your
call
thumb.
that alcoholism, but there we go.
We call that whatever day of the week it is over here.
Uh,
Just because. It doesn't have to be a reason. That's just because.
Just replace the brown paper bag.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So on Sunday at Tynecastle, is this the day we win the league? Liam,
I hope so. I hope
Shane.
so. The only crowning on the weekend that's going to be worth watching.
Hey! And Shane, are we winning the league on Sunday?
Yep, we're winning the league on Sunday, and it's going to be glorious.
And Johnny,
Nah, mate, I'm sorry. We're not good. Of course we are. Yeah, 100%.
I
Every
thought
bloody go.
Johnny's going to be like, nah, we're going to have a draw so we win it at Ibrox the following week. I was hoping someone would be just that much of a,
Nah.
of a party
Big
pooper
win.
that'd say that. Nah, for me, I'm like, expected starting lineup. What do you reckon? It'll be pretty much similar to what we had on the weekend in the Cup semi. I don't think there'll be too many changes other than Carter Vick as well. He's out for the season. And
Ralston.
Maybe
Johnston out, Ralston in. That's pretty much the only changes I could see. So you go with our strongest available team.
I reckon Moy sneaks in. Moy for Hatate. I reckon they give Hatate a bit of time off after the weekend. Put Moy in.
He looked a bit sluggish. I think he still needs a wee bit more training to get back up to full speed.
So just you keep him as our super sub, bring him on for the last 30 minutes. You know, that 60-minute triple sub that Ange loves.
Yep. Yep, exactly.
Cool. Any matchups to watch out for, Johnny, in the game in particular?
Nah, not off the top of my head. I think it's going to be a big game for our front three again. I think Hearts are going to come out really hard. So I think it's going to be a lot of the that heavy metal, high pressure stuff. So I think there'll be opportunities again behind the press. So I think it's going to be our fullbacks or maybe our defenders doing flicks over to the front three. I think that's where we're going to get goals and stuff.
It'll be the same as it is every week. Our entire team versus the referee. There you go.
Yeah. I just don't think it's going to be a park the bus situation. I think Hearts are going to do everything they possibly can to make sure that we don't get a win. And the only way they're going to do that is to score more goals than us. So,
well, they're chasing third as well. They've got to get some wins, pick up some points, whatever they can to, get that third spot. And what's that? The guaranteed Europa League or Conference League spot?
Conference League, I think it is. Yeah.
Conference League, yeah. So you think they'd be wanting that, trying to push hard for that, especially if they've been third all season.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, for me, something I'm looking forward to is seeing Starfelt the rest of the season playing right back with Kobayashi at left centre back. So back on their preferred positions there, and just seeing how their partnership builds. Be good to see. First player to be booked. We'll go the funny. I'm just keeping these ones because I think it gives good little value. I'm thinking if Haxa plays, he's just going to chop someone down. He's just
hack by name, hack by nature.
He's just looked aggro to me the last couple of games. Like, he's had that aggro look about him as he's playing. So I think he's just going to go chop someone. Nothing wrong with that. Leave some studs in. They'll deserve it anyway. What do you think, Shane? Who'll be the first player booked?
Cammy Devlin. If he starts for Hearts in midfield, he'll chop someone down. Australian Cammy Devlin. He gets stuck in, and sometimes he's a bit overeager. So I think he might get a booking.
Well, that was my next one. What minute will Cammy Devlin get a card?
23rd.
I was going to say 11th minute.
I'm going to go for a wild prediction for my yellow card. I think it's going to be Maeda because I think, some Hearts hack is going to pull down Kyogo with an outrageous foul and not get a card. And then in a flash of the moment, dives in, fly kicks him right into the second row of the stand. Eric Cantona style.
Finish him.
Yes, fatality.
Johnny, what are you thinking?
Maybe Ralston. Maybe a bit rusty. So
okay, we've got a
Big
few
time.
here for you. Haxa takes out the ref. Then we've got first and second booked Cammy. Kaiser, Ange chokeslams the third official.
I thought it wasn't WWE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you got here Kevin Mullen, get the job done Sunday, then play some young guns, Vada and Summers, to see what they've got.
Yep,
Like the sounds of
absolutely.
that. Who's going to be the first scorer, Liam, and what's going to be the final score?
Kyogo first goal, Celtic to win 3-0.
Shane?
Jota first goal, Celtic 3-1.
Johnny?
I also thought Jota, and I'm going to say 4-1.
Okay. I'm gonna say we're going to pump a team. We've got to get back into form. We can't keep playing the way we have. We're due. 6-0. Kyogo hat-trick. All in the first 10 minutes. Then Cammy Devlin gets his card in the 11 minutes because he's just like lost the shit. Yep, there you go. Just be stupid. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, we'll get the win. All we got to do is get a win and the league title's in the bag, and onwards and upwards. Then it's suddenly trebles there to be played for. It's going to be good to see.
That's it.
Angelo has got a nice comment here. I'd like to see Ange's Japanese translator red carded. Paddy Lavery 10-0. Eamon, I can't wait for May to speak about a fishing trawler. Kyogo to strike first and we'll romp him 4-1.
Yes, yes. Well done, Kaiser.
Someone's going to cop 10. We've been saying it for the better part of 2 seasons now. It's got to happen. We've got a 9.
Yeah.
We've got a 9.
So close. Yeah. So close.
Nintendo United. Yeah.
Yeah.
The worst part in that game was we hit the post twice too.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Doing the match day on Axon, that one. I think it was me and you, wasn't it, Liam?
Yeah,
On the
yeah.
match day that way. We're doing that with us doing Paul on Axon, and it's just like, come on, the 10. Oh, hit the post. We hit the post twice. Unlucky. Anyway, what we'll do to finish off, I'll go final thoughts. I'll go first. Paddy Lavery, you've done mine perfect for me. How can I get one of those flags? I was just going to plug them anyway. So if you want one of the flags, send me an email, admin@celticdownunder.com, and I'll get back to you with, just tell me the address where you want it sent, and then I'll tell you the price, including postage. You can do that, or you can just comment on, send us a DM on Twitter or Instagram @CelticDown. You can find us on there too. But yeah, there's plenty of flags available. I think I still need to send you your one, Liam. So sitting under my desk somewhere down there, along with your little mate. What's his name again?
Oh, King Charlie, was it? No. Anyway.
Johnny, your final thought?
My final thought is my music, as always. Music recommendation. So I'm going for an Aussie this time. And she's from where you guys are staying, from Melbourne. She's a Melbourne girl. The band, or the artist, I should say, is Kayat, and it's like she sings sort of soul, R&B, a lot about Australian, growing up in Australia and stuff, and Melbourne specifically. And yeah, nice. It's really good chill out music. If you just, like I say, like I was down up the boys this weekend in Warwick, so it's good music just to stick on a background and chill out to. So yeah, Kayat, give it a go.
Shane?
I'm going to give a shout out to a chap I met at the Melbourne Victory and Brisbane Raw game last Saturday. Apologies. I'm pretty sure it was Benji. Apologies if I get your name wrong. I was a few beers deep at that point. And he's a big Celtic fan. He actually had come down to watch the game because it was 2 teams that Ange had previously managed. And so, Benji, shout out. It was lovely meeting and chatting all things Celtic to you, and hopefully you've had a chance to listen into the pods this week. So, got you, mate.
And Liam, finish the pod off with something hilarious. No pressure.
Oh, so it's all right. So, fuck the king is not going to be funny. I better not say that then. Okay. Right. Okay. Let me think. I'm just going to reiterate what we said before. If you're pissing off Piers Morgan, you're doing something right. So please, Celtic support, keep it coming, and
Too true.
let's just keep singing those songs that we know that little bloody rat-faced, beetroot-faced cretin hates, and let's keep it going as long as we can. Fuck the king, up the Celts. End of story.
Happy days. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll speak to you next week. Hail, hail.
Hell,
Hell, hell.